Hey guys, this is Jason. So for this video and for the rest of the summer, I am going to be doing something I haven't done a lot of in my channel, and that is make more classic movie reviews, which is a good opportunity for me to review some of my favorite films I've been wanting to review ever since I started this channel. And don't worry, I am still going to do new movie reviews for the summer. That's still happening, but I am also going to be reviewing more classic movies I want to talk about. And in case if you are new to my channel, I have made some classic movie reviews in the past, and those reviews have been Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Gremlins, Taken, and The Matrix. And if you want to see those videos, in case you haven't, I will leave a link in the description below for the full playlist, and of course you will also see the full playlist in the end of this video. And for today's video, I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite movies of all time, and that film is Back to the Future, directed by Robert Zemeckis. And it stars Michael J. Fox, Lloyd, Crispin Glover, Leah Thompson, and Thomas F. Wilson. So as you guys already know, but in case if you don't, in case if you haven't seen this movie yet, this movie is about a teenager named Marty Mcfly who plays guitar and is a part of a band in high school, who's having issues with his family not doing a whole lot together. In fact, his parents look like they don't really love each other anymore, possibly. And his dad, played by Crispin Glover, is constantly bullied by Biff, who also talks down to Marty and likes to talk about Marty's mom in front of him. But when he sees a DeLorean as a time machine made by Doc Brown, played by Lloyd, he accidentally uses a time machine that sends him back to the year 1955, where he bumps into his parents as teenagers and has to think of a way for them to get together and figure out a way to go back to his own time in 1985. When this movie was released in 1985, critics and audiences loved it. It made this much money at the box office, and it made 2 sequels. I remember when I was little, my dad used to have this DVD copy of all 3 of the Back to the Future films and tell me why they were so good. And it became one of those trilogies where me and my family would constantly watch all 3 of them and quote a lot of the famous lines from all 3 of them. Marty Mcfly is a teenager who is also in a band that's trying to go on top, but unfortunately they're not going on top because the teachers are afraid that they're just too darn loud. And that is said by Huey Lewis himself, who also did the song The Power of Love for this film, as well as Back in Time. And he's sadly dealing with issues with his parents, while his dad George is an awkward kind of guy and he can't really stand up for himself when Biff talks down to him, especially when Biff wrecks a car that Marty was going to borrow for his date with Jennifer, but George didn't want to stand up for himself for that because he's just not very good with confrontations. And Lorraine is overprotective of Marty dating Jennifer because she does some of the stuff that Lorraine never did when she was a kid. And when you look at both Lorraine and George in 1985, you can tell that they don't really have a spark in their relationship, sadly. And you do get to feel bad for Marty for all the struggles that he unfortunately has to deal with. But then things go completely upside down for Marty, because when he runs into his parents as teenagers in 1955, that becomes a crazy thing for him because he's literally seen both of his parents the same age as him. And the acting is definitely one of the strong parts of the film. Like, Michael J. Fox is of course good as Marty Mcfly, Leah Thompson is good as Lorraine, and Crispin Glover is good as George McFly, and he does bring some personality to his character. And unfortunately, Crispin Glover did not come back for Back to the Future Parts 2 or 3. Why? Because of a salary dispute, sadly. So they only mentioned George a few times in 2 and 3 by using old footage of him from the first film, as well as photos of him in certain scenes. And of course, there's Thomas F. Wilson as Biff, who plays one of those bullies that you want to hate when he's either poking fun at George and taking advantage of Lorraine. What are you looking at, butthead? But of course, there's the chemistry between Michael J. Fox as Marty Mcfly and Lloyd as Doc Brown. their chemistry is fantastic, and their chemistry in parts 2 and 3 are so much fun. They play off of each other so well, and you do get the sense that they really are friends, even though Doc is older and Marty is supposed to be a teenager, which we never learn about why Marty likes to hang out with Doc. We never really find out how they become friends. It's kind of a weird mystery that we never find out throughout this trilogy. All I can think of is that maybe Doc was Marty's science teacher in high school, but Doc does an experiment that goes horribly wrong that unfortunately gets him fired. But Marty never stopped hanging out with Doc, probably because they liked hanging out with each other, and Doc learned that Marty is also in the band and wanted to make like an experiment that was good for Marty. In fact, there's like an experiment in the beginning of the film that Marty tries to use for this guitar, but it doesn't go as well as he hoped. Like, that's the one theory that I have on explaining on how these two like to hang out with each other. Kind of like Walter White and Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad, except replace drugs with science. Their chemistry is easily the heart and soul of this film and in parts 2 and 3, which I might be talking about this summer. This movie also gets away with some pretty adult stuff, despite the fact that this film is PG and kids are allowed to watch it. I mean, I watched it as a kid, but there are characters in this film that say some pretty adult stuff that you wouldn't normally see in any family movie. And this film kind of counts as one of those films that got away with being a little more mature for family films, and there were a lot of films like that in the 70s and the 80s. Mostly films that are directed by Steven Spielberg, whether they're films like Jaws or films that are produced by him instead, like Gremlins. And this movie also counts as one of the first films from my childhood where I learned certain bad words that I did say out loud, but my parents told me not to say them because they were bad words. And of course, I could not talk about this film without even once mentioning Alan Silvestri's iconic score. It's one of my favorite scores from his. But despite the fact that this is one of the most iconic scores of all time, for some reason, it wasn't even nominated for an Oscar. What? It's one of the most iconic scores of all time and it didn't even get nominated? Come on. It's one of my favorite scores of all time. It's awesome to listen to and it really works very well in some of the scenes, like in the third act, for instance. When we're in that scene where Doc is on the clock tower and the lightning is about to strike and Marty is trying to go back to his own time, and you feel the tension growing throughout the scene and the music is just blasting throughout that entire scene. This is also a very well shot movie where we see cool shots of the nighttime scenes when the time machine is out and when the camera slowly dollies in on Marty when he first sees the time machine for the first time. The cinematography here is definitely something that no one should overlook. Dean Cundey does a great job with the cinematography for this film. This also puts Marty in some very uncomfortable situations where he has to bring his parents together, but it also leads to some very awkward moments for him. And I'm gonna explain that by going into spoilers. So if you have not seen Back to the Future, then don't watch this part of the video. Just skip to this time. But if you for some reason have not seen the film, then what? This movie's awesome. Go watch Back to the Future. So early on in the film, Lorraine explains that her dad accidentally hit George with his car, and Lorraine took him to her house to take care of him, and that's how they fell in love. And then later went to the Enchantment Under the Sea dance where they had their first kiss together, and that's how they became a couple. But then that completely changes when Marty saves George from getting hit, and he gets taken by Lorraine instead to her house, and she starts to have a crush on him. And we get so many awkward moments with the two where Lorraine is saying some things about him and calling him Calvin Klein a lot and makes Marty very uncomfortable. And that makes Marty quickly realize that he has to get his parents together fast so that he can get out of this weird and awkward situation he has with his mom. Now, there isn't like any like real issue I have with this film. I honestly think that this movie is fantastic. like, but if maybe there was like one little issue that someone asked me that I would find, I would say that one scene with the Enchantment Under the Sea dance scene when George and Lorraine are dancing to Earth Angel, some random guy just pushes George to the side and takes Lorraine for himself. And this guy is, for whatever reason, while they're dancing, laughing evilly. Why is that there and why is he laughing evilly? I don't know. It really felt shoehorned in the film, but it doesn't really matter because it shows Marty seeing his parents finally get together, and it does build some dramatic parts when Marty is seeing the picture of his brother and sister gone and he is slowly disappearing himself, and he's rooting for George to try to get back with Lorraine. And that's why I can give that little shoehorn part a pass, because it's still a great scene where it still has some good tension in there. But despite that little shoehorned random part in the film, I honestly don't have any issues with Back to the Future. I love this movie a lot. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, and it will continue to be one of my favorite movies of all time. Back to the Future gets an A+. Yes, I'm still giving it an A+ besides the shoehorn part, but it's just something I could just ignore, like just brush it off of my shoulder. So guys, this is going to be a start for the channel where I review more classic movie reviews for this summer. I'm still going to review newer films, don't worry, that is still happening. But I am also going to review a lot more older films I've been wanting to talk about for quite some time, like Back to the Future Parts 2 and 3, for instance. I am going to review those, but I am thinking like once a month, like Part 2 in July and Part 3 in August. Where in the meantime, I am going to review other older films I've been wanting to talk about ever since I started this channel, and I can't wait to do that. So guys, if you have seen Back to the Future, which I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys have, but if you haven't, then I hope you were being careful with this video, like with the little warning I just mentioned earlier, because I spoiled quite a bit of stuff in this video. But if you have already seen the film, let me know how you feel about it in the comments below. And stay tuned for some more classic movie reviews I'm gonna do. Some of them are gonna be movies I love, and there are gonna be some movies that I used to love as a kid, but I look back on them as an adult and I might not love them as I used to. So look forward to those classic movie reviews as well. And look forward next week for my new classic movie review, because it is gonna be an exciting one. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, and I'm pretty sure you guys are gonna be excited for it as well. And again, it's not Back to the Future Part 2 or 3. I'm saving them for the rest of the summer. This one is gonna be completely different, so look forward to that. And as always, if you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss a thing, because it helps my channel grow. Hit the notification bell so you know what other videos I'm posting. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.